Good afternoon, I'm Scott Reitz. I am primary firearms instructor for International Tactical Training Seminars out of Los Angeles, California. I was also a former LAPD officer. Came onto the department in 1976, pulled the pin in 2006, and I thought it might be interesting to look back historically on not only the revolvers I came on with, but some of the speed loaders and some of the techniques and holsters that we utilized back then. So, without further ado, what I have here is a Model 67 stainless 4-inch. This is what I came onto the department with. And it has adjustable sights to the rear. This one is very unique. And the reason this is so unique is that this is probably one of the only bull barrels that was authorized by the Los Angeles Police Department for me to carry, or anybody to carry, on duty. There was a period of time in the late 70s when you took the pistol in, and I had Harry Davis at the Academy install this, and they put it on my firearms card. And I had to have a holster especially designed for it. But the reason it had the bull barrel was it added a little more weight, and that helped control recoil. And at the time, when you're a young officer, it just looked kind of neat, but it had a good feel to it. 6-shot revolver. And these are Hurst stocks, become very much a collector's item. John Hurst was the one that made these things, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And they're made out of exotic hardwoods, and they would fit your hand absolutely perfectly, so you got high up in the back strap. And this revolver is the one that I still have to this day. When you retire from the Los Angeles Police Department, if you've turned on all your equipment, you have to pay the astounding sum of, I believe it was $67 in order to retain this. And so I did. So this is the revolver that I came on with. Model 67, stainless steel, 4-inch, bull barrel. It was originally a lighter barrel, standard barrel. And this one you had to clean immaculately for inspection. When you did inspections, you would stand at, once you've unloaded, you would stand at inspection with it across, with your rounds in your hand. They come by, they inspect not only the revolver, but also the rounds that were in your hand in this manner here. So in addition to this being my issued revolver, the question then arises, how did we ever reload this? What kind of devices did we have? Almost all officers, modern day officers, have never even used a revolver, let alone know if you could possibly speed reload one. Everybody now has semi-automatics with magazines, and there's no reason to ever change or go back to the revolver. But it is nostalgic, and it is historical in nature. So, that being said, I'm going to take you through the evolution as I saw it and as I experienced it on basically reloading the revolver and what devices we had. First of all, this is what I came on with. This is what you had to wear on your duty rig. And this is called a dump pouch. And the dump pouch went through Sam Brown in the back of here. You could only have one. And in an emergency, this is when lead pills are flying about, you're in the middle of a gunfight, this is what you were supposed to do. You broke this open. Then you had to pull on this inside, and it dumped out all the loose rounds in your hand. And all your loose rounds came out. Now, the only way to get these in properly is they had to be staggered. You had the nose of the bullet one way, the nose of the bullet in the opposing, you get them out, and imagine having this in the middle of a gunfight. Now you're going one at a time trying to get them into the cylinder, and of course this is out. It's called a dump pouch because you really dumped the rounds out. Now, around the time I was coming through the academy, they came up with a brilliant innovation. Again, that was called a speed strip. There aren't too many of these around. And this is called a Speedy Loader. High-tech stuff, very high-tech. It is spring steel, it is chrome, a little tiny handle here. There's a reason for that. And this was, in my day, super high-tech. What we would do instead of the dump pouch here is you open it up, you grab the little handle here, you withdrew it out here, and now you snapped each of these into a cylinder one at a time. So each chamber had to be specially loaded. That was 6 rounds. 6 rounds, again, midst of a gunfight, lead flying all over, total chaos. Snap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then toss it off to the side, or drop it. That was high tech back then. This is called the Speedy Loader. There are a handful of these around. I've got a few. Somehow they survived all my years. I came across this and my original dump pouch that this went with. So you carried this in here, locked down, Velcro. Velcro was high tech back then. And this was all you were allowed. You couldn't carry any more. So At any one time when I was in the street, I had a total of 1838 rounds on me, and that was it. When I first came on, they were 158 grain solid lead round nose bullets. Later on, we were allowed to go to hollow points. Now, the LAPD did not like us working with a speed loader. And the reason for that is when everybody stood at attention, and go back and look at some historical archival photos, and you'll see LAPD officers at attention for inspection, and these were very uniform, shall we say. So you could look down a line, all the officers were in shape. You didn't have obese officers on LAPD back then. They weren't field certified, they were kicked out. So you'd look down and you'd see all these nice, straight speed loaders. They came up with this. These are the round speed loaders. They didn't like these because now there are all these little black bumps going down. So it was quite a while until somebody finally realized that, well, common sense had to win out over uniformity. So these were finally shelved, and now we came out with this. And these are speed loaders, and there are different types of speed loaders. Speed loader here, you break it open, and you had a knob. And the problem with this one is you had to turn the knob. And in the cylinder, when you were reloading, if for some reason you couldn't or forgot with the round in there to control the cylinder, it would simply spin and it would not release the rounds. So you had to control the cylinder. So if your hand was injured, we had to come up with techniques in between our knees and inside the waistband, or using our forearm compressed against it in order to stop this from spinning, and therefore you couldn't reload it. However, more high-tech stuff came, and that was this, which is the Safari Land Comp 2. And the Safari Land Comp 2, you don't have to spin it. There's an ejector star, dead center in it, and what happens with the dead center ejector star is when you placed it in the outboard, you simply pushed on the sides down, and it basically, with the muzzle in a downward vertical direction, ejected all the rounds into the chamber. Now, believe it or not, I can teach you how to reload a revolver faster, if not as fast as most people with a semi-auto, because that technique basically came up and you'd fire your last shot, you'd break it, thumb on, straight up, straight down, into the vertical, boom, close, back up, just like that, and that's slow. So we learned how to do that and practiced quite a bit. Now, Uncle Scotty and a few other guys managed to go out, and I don't know how many of these are left, but this is a quad speed loader for Revolver. And it carries 4 speed loaders, Safari Land Comp 2, and this is what I carried on my Sam Brown for many, many years. You can see just how worn this thing actually is. And if you want to know what's really challenging, is we go to this one. This is for off-duty use or undercover, and this one you love because the belt went through here, and you snap this up, and we have rounds out here. And you take your rounds out, and of course the flap got in the way because it's very stiff leather. So another innovation. It certainly gave the bad guys a fighting chance. It made it very fair play, if you will. Now, one of the things when I look back on it is that you actually went out with just 18 rounds, and you had to make your rounds count. There's no way that you could sit there and hose 15 or 20 rounds at a suspect. You had 18 total, and it took time to reload. So in many regards, it forced you to be very accurate. It forced you to be accountable for your rounds. About the most you could ever fire were 6 rounds at a time, and then you had to reload. So kind of an interesting point of fact. Not that semi-autos should ever be disregarded as effective weapons. A revolver is a lot of fail points. Sometimes we get unburned powder in the crane, and it wouldn't lock up, wouldn't lock back up. Sometimes the ejector star would stick. Sometimes expanded casings would stick. There are any number of mitigating factors that would cause a revolver to fail long before, I should say, a semi-automatic might fail. And the options for clearing it out of a revolver were basically your backup gun. If you couldn't get that revolver cylinder closed or it didn't turn because of a high primer, split case, you were pretty much out of luck. If you didn't have a backup, that was a bad day at Black Rock, let me put it that way. So I thought I would give you just a little bit of history on revolvers that I came up with, some of the speed loaders. Hopefully we get some feedback on this. I'm sure some of you out there who are long in the tooth are going to remember some of these devices, Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and it's just my perspective on working with revolvers and speed loaders way back in the day. Thank you very much.